Are we set to begin?
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. It's really a pleasure to welcome into our midst the Global Chief Education Officer for GEMS, Sir Christopher Stone, a person who has revitalized learning at the kindergarten starters more than anyone else I know. So welcome, Sir Chris, to this morning's plenary. We also welcome Mr. Vikki Kapoor, Chief Editor of College Times. It's really exciting to have a journalist in our midst, and we hope that your perspectives will encourage children to become not only readers, but writers as well. We welcome Professor Ganesh Saili, author from India, from the Himalayas, Mussoorie, and we hope your unique perspective will encourage children to continue reading and writing. And finally, last but not least, Mr. Michael Gazda, Vice President, Education, in charge of our cluster of schools. Welcome all of you to the Right to Read program, the opening plenary. We're very, very excited about getting this started. Just to give you a little bit of background, the Right to Read is an attempt to alter the way we are looking at learning. The pandemic has thrown up several challenges, and we've had to respond quickly to the same. We had a digital structured reading program in our school, but when I began to look at the data, I found that there was something missing. Our students were not reading as much as I would have liked them to, and their enthusiasm and consistency of reading was difficult to gauge. So we designed what we have called the Right to Read Week to meet the emerging educational challenges. And I'm hoping that this will continue through the pandemic and beyond. I want our students to become responsive readers. They must be able to empathize and understand the difficult circumstances and lives of other people. And unless they're able to connect with people, we're not adding value by just reading books. So we reached out to the wider community, and to say the least, we were overwhelmed. We had authors like Ruskin Bond, Ganesh Saili, Alan Hesse, Gloria Barnett, Michael Ross, organizations like the Emirates Literature Foundation, Alliance Française, and the KHDA joining us to read to our students. In the space of 1 week, we're going to have 95 people reading to our children, leaders, authors, journalists, editors, principals, teachers, parents, grandparents, alumni, and student authors. And these sessions are going to be in 5 languages: English, French, Arabic, Hindi, and Malayalam. Because reading is a skill which is transferable. And I want our children to be able to decipher words and decode meaning and understand the connections between languages. I don't think our children are going to enjoy reading if all the time they're worried about certificates and stars and what they're going to get. I don't want them to be weighed down by these things. While comprehension is important, I think reading for pleasure is just as important. And that's why we put together the Right to Read. We felt now more than ever, children need to understand the joy of reading and be able to use this during a time when the COVID pandemic has restricted us to our homes. With a book in hand, I'm sure that none of you will ever be lonely. So the old and the young alike are going to read to you, and they're going to bring their own success stories and what reading has meant to them. And as they share their books and the genres that are meaning for them, they're sharing their own personal experiences, and I'm hoping that it's going to enrich the lives of all our students. When you listen to a story, you learn not only new vocabulary, you learn the nuances of the language. And when you try to understand a different accent, you're truly becoming a global citizen. And you will hear stories of difficult times and how they have been overcome, and it will teach you resilience. At the kindergarten starters, we have altered instruction, and so we felt we must alter assessments as well. So when teachers listen to you today, they're going to be listening to the questions that you raise. We're going to be listening to the stories that you like. And I, as a principal, I'm going to come to know what kind of books I must buy in order to expand our library. Our teachers are not going to be bound by 40-minute lessons connected to the curriculum, but they're going to expand the potential of every single student in the school. And that's what I'm excited about. Finally, people are going to ask me, what is the impact of this program? The impact may be seen in a week, may be seen in a month, but may not even be seen in years to come. But I feel if children have connected with one book and with one reader, it would have altered their lives forever. So I'm hoping that this Right to Read Week will be the most life-altering week that you children have come across. We've altered the way we deliver instruction. And I think this is going to be something we're going to carry forward, not just this week, but in the weeks to come. I think what children are going to learn this week will be much more than they would have probably learned through the year. So with this, I invite Sir Christopher Stone, Chief Global Education Officer, to come and share his thoughts and views on reading and how it has helped him and what he thinks, why he thinks this is important for our children. Sir Christopher.
Thank you, CEO and Principal Asher Alexander. That's a lovely welcome, and thank you. It's lovely to hear that so many young people and so many older people are going to be talking about reading all this week. So, bore da, bachgen a merched, sut ydych chi heddiw? Dwi'n siarad Cymraeg. So that means, good morning, bore da, bachgen a merched, boys and girls. Sut ydych chi heddiw? How are you today? And dwi'n siarad Cymraeg. I am speaking Welsh. Cymru is Wales in English. So when I grew up, I grew up in Wales, and I'm not quite sure really. When I was first there, I couldn't quite work out why I didn't quite fit in. And in many ways, it could have been about the language, because nearly everybody spoke Welsh. Even the English people had a better understanding of Welsh than I did. But it wasn't that. And then I thought maybe it was because I was English and everybody just about was Welsh. But unfortunately, it wasn't that either. And then I looked around again, and I think I saw I was the only boy who wasn't white, or the only child that wasn't white in the school. And yet, actually, my friends, I don't think, saw my colour. I don't think that mattered to them. And I had a lovely childhood. I had a lovely time in school. I went to a great school. But my home life was complicated and difficult and different. And I had what was called a child protection order, where I was in the care of social services from the time I was 9 till the time I was 16. But while I was at school, with my friends, I used to think that running was probably the most important thing. I used to run everywhere. I wanted to be fast. I wanted to zip along. And then, unfortunately, I thought that being the strongest was most important. And unfortunately, people used to come quite a long way to have a fight with the only non-white boy around, and I was quite happy to give them it. So I wanted to be a fighter. And then really I discovered sport, and in particular rugby, and I wanted to be the best rugby player. But really none of those things changed my life. What changed my life was I started to read. And I wanted, because I knew I was a bit different, I wanted to read different things. So I started to reading people like Dostoevsky. I read all his major works. I read Solzhenitsyn. I read about George Orwell, who was a great writer, and Flaubert. So I read lots of people from other countries. They weren't from Wales. They weren't from England even. They were from other countries. And reading really got me where I am, because if I hadn't learned to be reasonably good at school, I would be delivering milk. I delivered milk from the time I was 9 every morning, except Christmas Day, through until the time I was 18 and a half. Every morning, I had to earn my own money. I had to earn a living, and I did other work and other jobs. But if I hadn't got good qualifications and then became a teacher, I was still running, and I was still playing sport because I was a PE teacher at first. But the reality is I could have either been delivering milk or working in the army. And those are good jobs, I get that, but really reading made the difference. and reading took me out to where I was. Everything I've accomplished has been through being a reader. After university then, I didn't ever go back to Wales. I lived a different life and a different path. And reading took me into a place where I discovered, as Asha has said nicely, you discover an imagination, you discover new worlds. In particular, I think you discover empathy. You can put yourself in the place of somebody else and understand what they're feeling. If you're a boy, try reading a book about a girl. If you're a girl, try reading a book about a boy. Try to put yourself into somebody else's position. And really, you'll discover the world. And what I discovered from reading was that there was a bigger world than the little world I knew, because the world I knew was very small. It was a little place called Llamarcrainham in a county called Montgomeryshire. And the county doesn't even exist anymore. It's called Powys now. That was in central Wales. And although I have great friends, and I've kept those great friends, and I had some lovely teachers at school who made a big influence on my life, it was reading, when I look back, that made the biggest difference. And now, I can't run so fast. Mr. Guzder and I do quite a lot of walking. So, you know, I walk, I don't run, I don't fight. My principal took me aside when I was very early and said, Christopher, if you keep fighting, you're going to fight the world. You're going to be fighting all your life. So I stopped fighting, had my last fight when I was about 16 or so. And I don't play rugby, I just watch rugby, but I read. Every day I read. So it doesn't really matter what you read. Please read comics, read magazines, read anything that you find interesting. It doesn't matter what you read, but your vocabulary will change, your understanding will change. And when we talk about something like COVID, you'll be able to understand what it's like for other people. Maybe in countries that aren't as well managed and well organized as the UAE is. And actually, my home country, England or Wales, aren't dealing with COVID as well as the UAE is. So we learn from each other, we share from each other. And then, funnily enough, the last thing that reading gave me, I think, was an expression of language. And I'm back to language. So my language finishes with Diolch yn fawr, bach yn y merched, diolch yn fawr. So thank you very much. Thank you very big is what it means, really. Diolch yn fawr. And I look forward to reading to you. I'm going to be reading Boy at the Back of the Class, which is a new book by a new author. It's her first work, and it's a lovely book about kindness to a Syrian refugee who comes and joins a school. So if you're going to be listening to me, you need to understand what the word refugee means, if you can find that out. And you could maybe find out where Syria is. So those are the two things before we read our book together, which I'm doing on Tuesday morning. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Chris. That was really enlightening. I hope our children have learned how reading has enabled you to reach where you are. And it's very, very important that success in whichever field that you choose for yourself, whether you want to be in PE, play rugby, become a boxer, become a teacher, you need language to express yourself. So thank you very much for that. May I now invite Vikki Kapoor, Chief Editor, College Times, to share his thoughts with us.
Thank you so much, Asha. And very, very well said, Sir Christopher. Language is something, reading is something that gives you the benefit of communication. And I think as humans, we are different from every other species on the planet, because we can communicate in words. And that's, what reading inculcates in children, right from when they're at the young age, when they're pupils. It's something that broadens your horizons. It's something that transports you into a different world. While you're sitting on your bed, on your study table, in a corner somewhere in a room, but you're transported into a whole new world with the power of words. And that's the power of reading that children now, I think more and more we're seeing kids getting accustomed to these smaller devices, iPhones, their smartphones and laptops, etc., which is fine as long as they're still reading, because that's what will help their minds grow. That's what, and again, as Sir Christopher very rightly said, it doesn't matter what you're reading. It doesn't matter whether it's a book from your curriculum. It doesn't matter whether it's a comic that you're reading. It doesn't matter what you're reading. I, for one, was not a big fan of reading when I was very young. So until the age of, I think, 11 or 12, I was a very, naughty kid, naughty child, and my teachers weren't really happy. Somehow, I used to get good grades in school, but that's because I would just attempt at reading just maybe a few days before my exams and just mug up stuff and do whatever I did. But then my life changing moment, so to say, happened when one of my English teachers in one of the grades told me not to attend her classes and gave me a book and said I should just be somewhere in a library, in the field, on the ground somewhere, and just read the book, come back to her once I finished the book and discuss it with her. And I thought I was getting a free pass. I didn't have to attend her class, and I could just very very easily skip. But that the book that she gave me, and I and after that there were several books that I kept reading. They absorbed me completely into them, and not just the act of reading, the act of discussion later on, of what I thought, what the author was trying to convey, what I felt while reading certain chapters of the book. That really took me into another world, and that's where I caught the bug, so to say. And I am where I am because I started reading at whatever age I did. It's just that I understood the power of words. I saw my grades improve, substantially after, I started reading certain books which were not even related to the curriculum. It was just my vocabulary improved, my understanding, my perspective, everything improved over there. It was just reading, and it's not as if that it was thrust on upon me. I started enjoying it so much. It's just that there are no, when some children say, I hate reading. It's not that they hate reading. They haven't found the right book yet. The moment that you find the book that brings you in, that absorbs you, you will catch the bug, and there is no way that you can't. Whether now we do see kids reading on their phones and devices, which is fine as long as they're reading and they are absorbing what they're reading. So the power of words, the power of reading cannot be overstated. It's something that makes children into young adults, and then into humans. That's what makes us human. Reading is something that differentiates us from everybody else, every other species on the planet. And I'm glad, I'm really really happy that this initiative that you've undertaken as kindergarten starters at that age, it's as you rightly said, that the impact may not be felt, or may not manifest itself in a day, in a week, or whatever. It'll probably take a lifetime. It'll probably change certain children for good, forever, because once they start reading and once they start understanding, do also encourage them to discuss, because I think that was my learning with what my English teacher told me. The discussion that happens after that, it's it can be animated, it could be dull, it could be whatever it is, but that discussion is probably as important as reading the books and the words that expand the horizon, expand the strength of the mind of children who are reading it. That's all I have to say. It's a lovely initiative, and I'm really really happy to be part of it. I'm really glad to see so many people involved with it. And I hope that this will continue, and it's not just a week of reading, it's a whole lifetime of reading. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Vikki Kapoor. And it's just what your teacher of English did that we're doing right now. We're trying to let children find that one life-altering book, that one person with whom they can connect. And just like you said, after the reading, which may be for about 20 or 25 minutes, the readers are going to engage with students as students raise questions, give their perspectives, and the readers can clarify their thinking. And each reader would bring something, a little bit of himself, into the conversation. And children will begin to understand and meet people who can then change their lives. Just like you caught the bug, I hope a whole lot of kindergarten starter students are going to catch that bug. That's the intent with which we've started this. So thank you very much. May I now invite Mr. Michael Gazda, Vice President, Education, Indian Schools, to share his thoughts, please. Michael, you're muted. You're muted.
Is that fine?
Yes.
Once again, good morning, everybody. Morning, Asha. When I joined school, which now seems like about 100 years ago, life was very different in so many ways. We had no internet, no computers, no smart boards, no tablets or Kindles, no laptops, not even mobiles. And I know children today, pupils today, find this very difficult to believe. But we enjoyed life, and no, we didn't get bored. We didn't have video games either. We played outside in the rain and in the sun, and we were very fit. But let me tell you something about schools back then. I studied in the St. Joseph's High School in Allahabad, and then into the Boys' High School in Allahabad. I don't know whether all of you know where Allahabad is. It's a famous place. Amitabh Bachchan came from there, so I'm famous. But schools back then laid a lot of stress on reading, on speaking, and on handwriting. And I'm proud to say that although my writing was not very good, I was very good in speaking, and I read a lot. If my memory serves me right, I think it was in kindergarten where we had a book called The Radiant Way. I think that's the name, The Radiant Way. It was a reader. And the first paragraph of chapter 1 went something like this. It sounds a little funny, but just listen. It went like this. Sing, mother, sing. I'm reading it out. Can mother sing? Mother can sing. Pat can sing. Pat sing to mother. Mother sing to Pat. Now, that sounds so strange and odd to me today, and it makes me laugh. But it was a simple book, and it started us off with school. My mother often scolded me when I got back from school, because instead of getting down and changing and having my lunch and starting my homework, I was often reading books. And I'm sure some of you do that as well. I remember also when I got my new textbooks at the start of every academic year, I would rush home and take out the literature book and read as many of those literature stories as I could. Usually I had read all the stories much before the academic year started. I enjoyed books on suspense, adventure, jungle stories. I often imagine myself in those jungles, although I'm not very brave, but I imagine myself in those jungles and with those animals. And I liked detective stories. And even now, I think I'm a bit of a detective. I'm always looking and watching and wondering. Growing up in Allahabad, small little town, we borrowed books from each other. I cycled down on my cycle to an old bookstore, and I remember paying 1 rupee per book, or 1 rupee for 2 books, and I'd borrow about 5 books and take them home. And needless to say, in a day or two, I had finished them, and I was out looking for more books. I enjoyed Enid Blyton. I enjoyed Ruskin Bond. I enjoyed Lewis Carroll, Rudyard Kipling, and I enjoyed a number of stories as well. What else? Today, I'm happy that all GEM schools pay a lot of emphasis on writing, and at the kindergarten starters, which I've been working with for the past 3 or 4 years, the principal, your principal, Mrs. Asha Alexander, and the staff take writing very, very seriously, and it's so wonderful for pupils and for the teachers as well. I believe that the more you read, the better you will speak and the better you will write. I dabble in a little writing now and then, and I believe that the quality of my writing has improved because I've done a lot of reading, and I still do a lot of reading. Not as much as I'd like to, but quite a lot, and I read different stuff. At the moment, I'm reading a book it's an old book called Change Your Thinking. I've also been reading Dream Interpretation and Body Language. Strange books to some of you, but I enjoy them. You know, in this world, everybody strives to be a leader. And I believe that in order to lead, you need to be smart, you need to be knowledgeable. And for that, reading is the answer. And as somebody else said just now, don't worry too much. I think Mr. Alexander said this. Don't worry too much about competition. It's not about how many books you read. It's not about, are you reading the same thing which your friends are reading? Read what you enjoy. Even if it's very, very simple, enjoy it and try and understand the story and the words and what the author is trying to tell you. If you're not sure what to read, ask your teachers, ask your parents. Lastly, many of you I know read on Kindle. I tried once. I couldn't manage it. I still have my hard copies. But there's nothing so relaxing as sitting back. I'm based in Pune now, on a cloudy afternoon in bed on a comfortable chair, reading a good book. But once again, congratulations, Asha. You're always doing something new and something different and something stimulating. So congratulations to you, to your wonderful staff, to all the pupils and parents of kindergarten starters for both starting and supporting this most amazing initiative. Thank you so much. And I too will be reading, I think it's today, something simple, something old, but with a new flair. Thanks a lot. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, Michael. And while you are still stuck with your hard copies, I have transitioned to Kindle, and let me tell you, I'm enjoying reading Barack Obama's A Promised Land. It's something that's been so compelling, and though initially I saw 900 pages, I thought I might not be able to get through it. I haven't put the book down ever since I began. So it's again a change mindset and a way to look forward to transitioning, because I think reading, whichever way you choose, whether it's a hard copy or a Kindle, it should be the way forward for us and our children. So thank you for sharing your thoughts. Thank you for encouraging our children. And may I now invite Professor Saili. I don't see him. Has he left?
I think he was having problems with his Wi-Fi.
Vriddhi, do we have a recording of Professor Saili's to play?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Please do.
My name is Ganesh Saili. I am an author. I live in Missouri, in northern India, in the Himalayas. And at the outset, I would like to say thank you. Thank you so much to Sir Christopher Stone, GEMS Global Chief Education Officer, Mr. Michael Gazdar, and Miss Asha Alexander for giving me this chance to speak on the right to read. And how did I stray into writing? My name is Ganesh Saili. I am an author. I live in Missouri, in northern India, in the Himalayas. And at the outset, I would like to say thank you. Thank you so much to Sir Christopher Stone, GEMS Global Chief Education Officer, Mr. Michael Gazdar, and Miss Asha Alexander for giving me this chance to speak on the right to read. And how did I stray into writing? I used to read the Grandmasters as a young man and while going to college, and slowly inspired me to start writing. It began with little middles. It began with keeping notes. It began with noting down little words that I found that sounded nice. And reading, when you look back, reading has always been a minority pastime, especially in this age of devices, when children have so many distractions. There are too many distractions today. You have the television, you have the computer, you have Kindle, you have your iPad, you have your phone, and reading, I guess, was always a minority pastime. There were so few when I was in school. There were very few people who would go into a library, borrow a book, and read it. And we were the lucky ones, I guess, those who enjoyed reading, writing. And reading, of course, led to writing. I write about my home in Missouri. I write about the mountains in my backyard that saw 100 peaks soaring over 20,000 feet. And I write about the things that happen around me, and I see myself as a social historian. And I guess, it's the kind of place which is friendly to writers. Missouri has been gentle to writers down the ages. If you look back at history, we have John Lang, the Australian-born novelist, who lived up here, made this his home, and he wrote several of his books here, and was a bar at law, and is buried here in Missouri. He was a correspondent for Charles Dickens's Household Words. And then you have, of course, that great, the man with a wanderlust in his heart, the great Raul Saskritayan, who wrote 56 books while he was in Missouri, and lived in Happy Valley, did the first Indo-Tibetan dictionary. And then you have Satyaketu Vidyalankar, who lived in Missouri and wrote some 30 books. Then you have, of course, the grand master of them all, the one and only Ruskin Bond, my friend of 50 years, who has spent a lifetime writing his first book when he was 16 years old, and has never stopped. He's now in his 80s and is writing more now than he ever wrote before. And he's been kind to all of us youngsters, nurturing us, helping us, and teaching us how to get on with the precious gift of writing. And in the same Landau, where I live, is just 1,040 acres. And this 1,040 acres, you have Stephen Alter, who's written some 20 odd books and has taught creative writing at MIT and at the university in Cairo, in Egypt. And then you have Bill the Scotsman, naturalized Scotsman, William Aitken, Bill Aitken, my friend, who writes brilliant travelogues. His is an outsider's view on the inside, and he writes about us, and always packed with humor, Bill's writing. And you have many creative people here. You have Vishal Bharadwaj, the filmmaker. You have the famous actor, Mr. Victor Banerjee, who star of Passage to India, who lives here. And all of us are into writing. And I take this opportunity to say to you that read as much as you can. You will never be lonely. A book is the simplest thing to read. It has one password, and that is open the book and read. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak at this inaugural session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Saili. That was a lovely message. And children, you've got the secret password, open the book and read. And I hope that's going to be what's happening this entire week. You've heard from such different people about their journeys with reading. And I'm hoping that every one of them is going to inspire you to pick up a book and read. the impact that I hope to see is that you enjoy reading. To me, that is the one and only thing that I want you to do. If you don't enjoy reading, you will not continue with it. And I want this to be a life skill for all my children at the kindergarten starters. It's not about having to read, it's wanting to read. It should be the thing that you desire to do when you are lonely, when you're bored. You should be able to pick up a book. You should continue reading, because all of the vocabulary that you'll acquire, whether it is active or passive, when you listen to people, you will store away those wonderful phrases and words in your head. And later on, at some point of time, they will become yours. So listening to readers, empathizing, connecting with them, and being able to at least understand some pain in some life will make you not only responsible but responsive readers. So this is what I'm looking for in the Right to Read. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me this morning. It was an absolute privilege having all of you. Thank you, and have a wonderful week, and look forward to you all joining us at some point during the week. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Asha.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Vikki, Sir Chris.
Thank you
Thank
very
you so
much.
much, Michael. Thank you, Sir Chris, and thank you so much, Asha.
Thank you.